Your money has a life expectancy, and nobody told you. Not in school, not at the bank, not on the news. Every currency you've ever heard of dies. The Dutch guilder died. The British pound had its glory and then started shrinking. The US dollar, the thing almost every country still uses to trade oil and settle debts, is not immortal. It's somewhere on a timeline, walking step by step toward an ending. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people only realize the currency is dying when it already destroyed their savings. So in this video, I want you to imagine something. Picture every currency as a living thing that goes through 5 phases. It's born, it grows, it dominates, it decays, and then it mutates into something new. From the Dutch guilder that ruled the oceans, to the British pound that ran an empire, to the US dollar that runs the financial system, all the way to the digital dollar and the money that might live entirely on your phone. They all follow this same 5-phase lifespan. And the really important question is, where are we right now? Which phase are we in? And how much time is left? Let's walk through it together. And as we go, keep asking yourself, where is my country's money on this curve? And what does that mean for me? All right, phase 1. Phase 1 is the rise, when a currency is born lean, honest, and backed by real power. If you go back a few centuries, the Dutch guilder is a perfect example. The Netherlands was tiny compared to big land empires, but they were monsters at trade. They built ships, dominated sea routes, and basically turned the oceans into shipping lanes for money. Why did their currency become powerful? It wasn't because people liked tulips or windmills. It was because they had strong trade, new technology for that time, ships, navigation, finance, and honestly, discipline with money, at least at first. Phase 1 is like a startup phase. Think of a young company that is obsessed with product quality and customer trust. A young currency is the same. Usually, in this phase, the government debt is low or manageable. The money is backed by something people trust, gold, silver, or just a very strong economy. The country creates real value. It builds, trades, produces. The Dutch did that. The British did that. Early America did that. After kicking out the British and slowly becoming a real industrial power, the US started its own phase 1. It had land, resources, industry, and eventually, it had gold. For a long time, the dollar was directly tied to gold, which made people trust it. So phase 1 is the honest era, the "we have something real behind this paper" era. It feels solid, it feels fair. People trust the money because they trust what stands behind it. But as that trust builds, and as the country grows richer, we move into phase 2. Phase 2 is dominance, when the currency becomes the default setting for the world. This is when things get interesting. So again, look at the Dutch guilder. Dutch merchants created early versions of stock markets and big trading companies. Their ships went everywhere. If you wanted to do business, you ended up pricing things in guilders. That gave them power. Then came Britain. The pound sterling took over as the Dutch slipped. Britain had the biggest navy, the biggest empire, and the city of London became the global financial hub. If you were buying or selling across the world, you were probably dealing with pounds. The pound became the world's safe currency. Eventually, the US dollar replaced the pound. 2 world wars wrecked European economies. America came out of it with most of the gold, the biggest economy, and the military strength to back it. Countries started holding dollars as reserves, and key commodities like oil were priced in dollars, making it the king currency. So what actually defines phase 2? The currency becomes the main reserve currency, the main trade currency, the main safe asset everyone runs to during crises. In normal language, that means if anything goes wrong, money flows into that currency, not out of it. You can see why this is insanely powerful, because once the world needs your money, you can borrow in your own currency. You can print more, and others will still take it. You get to live slightly above your means because the rest of the world is willing to hold your IOUs. This is the peak privilege phase. If phase 1 is we earn trust, phase 2 is our trust is so big it becomes a global habit. But like every good story, that privilege comes with a dark side, and this is where phase 3 begins. Phase 3 is the addiction, when credit replaces productivity. This is where almost every dominant currency starts to rot from the inside. Think about the psychology here. If you know that other people will always want your money, what are you tempted to do? You spend more. You borrow more. You promise more. Why build a bridge when you can finance 10? Why fight one war when you can fund 3? Why limit yourself to what you can collect in taxes or earn through trade when you can just borrow against your own future? Once your currency becomes the global default, your politicians realize something. Deficits don't hurt as quickly. Inflation shows up later. The pain is delayed, and a lot of it is exported to other countries who are holding your currency. So the mindset shifts from, we must be disciplined, to we can always manage it later. And later never comes. This happened with the Dutch. They went from a lean trading powerhouse to a more bureaucratic, financially bloated state. They started losing their edge, and other nations copied their innovations. It happened with Britain. The empire stretched everywhere, but the cost of maintaining it, militaries, colonies, wars, started to outweigh its ability to pay. Debt piled up. The pound stayed, strong on paper, but underneath, it was weakening. And it's happening with the dollar. Massive deficits year after year, growing national debt, an entire system built on credit, government credit, corporate credit, consumer credit. Everyone is borrowing from the future, assuming the dollar's status will never be questioned. In phase 3, the currency is still strong on the outside, but the foundation is shifting. Instead of being backed by high productivity and real trade surpluses, it's held up by financial engineering and the belief that this is just how the world works. This is also the phase where the financial sector explodes. Interest rates, bonds, derivatives, ETFs, shadow banking, all kinds of complex stuff that most people never fully understand. All of that tends to grow during phase 3. Money starts making more money than factories do. Finance eats the real economy, and as that happens, inequality usually gets worse. Those closest to the money, big banks, big funds, governments, insiders, benefit first. Everyone else feels like the system is rigged. You may already be thinking, yeah, that sounds familiar, because phase 3 feels normal if you're living inside it, but historically, it never lasts forever. Which brings us to phase 4, the erosion. Phase 4 is when the world starts to quietly lose faith. Notice the word quietly. Currencies don't just fall off a cliff out of nowhere. Before the dramatic collapse, there's usually a long, boring, sneaky process where inflation becomes normal. Real wages stagnate, assets like housing and stocks skyrocket, while the average person feels squeezed. Other countries start making alternative deals, holding less of your currency or creating parallel systems. From the inside, people argue politics. It's the left's fault. It's the right's fault. It's immigration. It's greedy corporations. And all of that may play some part. But beneath the noise, the deeper problem is the currency's life cycle. In this erosion phase, governments face a brutal choice: default openly on their debts, which is politically suicidal, or default slowly through inflation, which feels less obvious, but quietly punishes savers and workers. Guess which one they usually pick? So the money you've saved in the safe currency slowly loses purchasing power. They tell you inflation is 2% or 4% or whatever. But what you actually feel when you go to buy food, rent, or a house, that tells another story. And remember, this isn't unique to one country. The Dutch guilder lost its dominance. The British pound lost its dominance. Each time, there were wars, crises, policy mistakes, but behind all that, you had the same pattern. They moved from strength to overreach, from discipline to addiction, and then into erosion. Now, here's the twist. In the past, when a currency eroded, it was usually replaced by another, paper currency, or at least another national currency. Guilder to pound, pound to dollar. But we're living through the first time in history where money itself is changing form. And that takes us to phase 5, mutation. Phase 5 is where we are right now, at least the beginning of it. This is the phase where money stops being just paper in your pocket or numbers in your bank and becomes fully digital, programmable, and possibly centrally controlled in a way we've never seen before. On one side, you have the digital dollar idea. Not just using your bank app, that's already normal, but something deeper, A central bank digital currency. Instead of cash, your money lives as entries in a government-controlled database. That kind of digital money is fast. Transactions can be instant and cheap, traceable. Every payment leaves a clear trail, controllable. In theory, it can be frozen, taxed, redirected, or even programmed. Now, some people look at that and think, great, less fraud, more efficiency, easier payments. Others look at it and think, wait, if money is entirely digital and controlled from a central point, what happens to privacy? What happens if your access can be turned off? On the other side, you have decentralized digital money, cryptocurrencies, stablecoins, that whole world. Whether you love it or hate it, it's the first serious attempt to compete with state money directly in digital form. People frustrated with inflation, capital controls, or broken banking systems have started experimenting with this stuff. In some countries, it's already a lifeline. So Phase 5 isn't clean and simple. It's chaotic. You've got the old system of debt-based national currencies decaying, the rise of central bank digital currencies promising efficiency and control, the parallel growth of decentralized digital currencies promising freedom and independence, all at the same time. If you feel like the financial world is getting weird, you're not wrong. It's what the end of a currency lifespan looks like when the entire concept of money itself is mutating. Now, here's where you come in, because this isn't just abstract history. You are living inside one of these phases right now. So let's zoom out and line up the 5 phases against what we're seeing. Phase 1, honest money backed by real productivity and something tangible. That feels like ancient history now, doesn't it? Phase 2, global dominance, when the currency is the default for trade and reserves. The dollar still lives here, but it's not alone anymore. Other countries are making side deals, building new payment systems, and holding more diverse reserves. Phase 3, addiction to credit and financialization, where the system runs more on debt than on real production. Look at government debt charts, consumer loans, corporate borrowing, and tell me we aren't here. Phase 4, erosion of trust, creeping inflation, rising inequality, quiet moves away from the currency. You can already see pieces of that in the global shifts, in people losing faith in saving in cash, and in how hard it is to preserve purchasing power. Phase 5, mutation into digital forms, both centralized and decentralized. That's literally what's being built as you watch this. Policy papers, pilot programs, private sector experiments, crypto protocols, it's all part of the same chapter. So if I had to place us, we're standing with 1 foot in Phase 4 and 1 foot stepping into Phase 5. The old system hasn't collapsed, but it's definitely not stable. The new system isn't fully here, but it's rushing in. That's the awkward, dangerous middle ground. And this is where you have a choice. Drift through it blindly or understand the pattern and use it. Because here's the harsh truth. When currencies die or mutate, average people usually get wrecked. Why? Because their savings are in the old thing. Their pensions are denominated in the old thing. Their mindset is locked on, this is how it's always worked, even when the system is screaming that it's changing. Rich and powerful players don't sit still in Phase 5. They move into hard assets, other currencies, political influence, anything that keeps their power intact no matter what the new system looks like. So what can you actually do? I'm not here to give you financial advice. I'm here to give you a mental model. First, stop thinking of money as neutral. Money is not just a tool we all use. It's a weapon. It's a control system. It's a story backed by violence, law, and belief. Every time a currency rises, it's powered by real productivity, security, and trust. Every time it falls, it drags people down with it. Second, realize that no currency in history has escaped this cycle. No exception. Not the guilder, not the pound, not the dollar, not whatever comes next. The pattern might stretch over decades or centuries, but the phases are there. Honest money, global privilege, debt addiction, slow erosion, chaotic mutation into something new. Third, ask yourself uncomfortable questions. If my salary, savings, and pension are all tied to a currency that's somewhere between Phases 3 and 5, am I okay with that? If money becomes completely digital and programmable, who does that really benefit? And what happens to people who don't comply with whatever rules get built into it? If a parallel system of digital assets, alternative currencies, and hard stores of value is forming, do I want to ignore it or at least understand it? And no, this doesn't mean sell everything and go all in on some coin or move to the woods with gold under your mattress. That's not the point. The point is awareness. The people who got destroyed in past transitions weren't dumb. Many of them were smart, hard-working, decent people. They just assumed the system they grew up in would keep working the same way forever. Dutch merchants who never imagined the guilder would lose its power. British savers who never imagined the pound could be devalued or replaced as the global standard. People who held on to old money a little too long as the rules changed around them. We only see their mistakes clearly because we're looking backwards. But right now, you're inside the next version of that story. And you don't get the luxury of hindsight. You get uncertainty, conflicting narratives, and a lot of noise. One side says, everything's fine, the system is stable, trust us. Another side screams, everything's collapsing, run to this new thing now. Reality is somewhere in between. Systems don't vanish overnight, but they do shift, they do break, they do evolve. So if we zoom out one last time, here's the full arc from Dutch guilder to digital dollar. A small trading nation creates honest money backed by trade and discipline. That money becomes dominant as their ships, factories, and armies spread across the world. The privilege of having the world use your money leads to debt addiction and financial engineering. Slowly, quietly, the world loses faith as inflation and inequality creep in. Finally, under the pressure of technology, crisis, and politics, the very nature of money mutates into something new, more digital, more controlled, or more decentralized, depending on who wins. You are living in that last part of the story. And here's the thing nobody's going to do for you. Nobody is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, by the way, your currency is in phase 4 heading into phase 5. Might want to adjust your life plan. Banks won't say it. Governments definitely won't say it. Most people are too busy trying to survive month to month to even think in these terms. But now you see the pattern. So the next time you hear about inflation, trillions in new debt, central bank digital currencies, crypto bans, payment apps, sanctions, de-dollarization, trade deals in other currencies, don't treat them as random headlines. They're not random. They're the visible cracks in new branches in this 5-phase lifespan of money. The question isn't, will the system change? It's, how fast, and are you going to be one of the people who gets blindsided, or one of the people who at least saw it coming and prepared mentally? You don't need to become an economist. You don't need to obsess over charts. Just remember this simple map. Phase 1, honest money earns trust. Phase 2, money dominates the world. Phase 3, power leads to debt addiction. Phase 4, quiet erosion of trust. Phase 5, mutation into something new and more digital, from Dutch guilder to British pound to US dollar to the digital forms competing for the future. It's the same movie with different actors. The credits on the current episode haven't rolled yet, but you're already in the final act, and whether you like it or not, your savings, your salary, and your future are part of this story.